The problem is that most women's adrenal glands are at the bottom of a well waving a white flag going, help me, because we've been stressed. We are the sandwich generation of raising young children. We may have elderly relatives or a parent that we're taking care of. We're working full time. We've got to take care of the kids. And now having 3 full-time jobs versus in the 1950s, where your one job as a woman was to look pretty, get married, have the kids and look after the kids. And that was that, be the homemaker. The men's job was to go out, get the bacon, marry the pretty girl, have the kids and bring home the bacon. And that was it. Now women have to be smashing it in their careers. We have to be looking after our children and making sure that everything is taken care of for them and our own mental health as well. At some point, something has to go. Is it any wonder that we're stressed? And that's just what we're doing, let alone we're not living in line with nature. We're supposed to be cycling with the moon for our menstrual cycles. We're supposed to not have artificial light. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Your adrenals then go, okay, I give up. And this is when women get the night sweats, the insomnia, the brain fog, the hot flushes, the burning tongue, all the other 34 official horrendous symptoms that can happen with menopause.
Welcome to the 51%, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get back to basics when it comes to women's health. Through expert insights and powerful personal stories, we help you tune into what really matters: your body, your well-being, your life. No one-size-fits-all advice, just real conversations to help you understand your health on your terms. But before we dive in, I've got a quick favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and join the 51% community on our website. It's free and helps us grow, reach more women, and create events that really speak to the health and wealth challenges we all face. And finally, just so you know, everything shared is for information only. It's not medical or financial advice, and always speak to a qualified expert for support that's right for you. Neela, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. So you are a former pharmacist with 20 years experience, and you've moved into the amazing world of homeopathy. Can you talk about your journey from what you were doing to what you're doing now, and why you're doing this as well? Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. So I was a pharmacist, as you say, for 20 years. And the simple answer was I wasn't happy doing what I was doing. I came to a career crossroads and I thought, I don't actually have a plan B. So, did what every good person does and does a pros and cons list. And one of the suggestions was you could be a homeopath, which was from my own homeopath. And I thought, maybe. So I had about 12 or 13 things on my cons list, on my pros list, and about 2 or 3 things on the cons list. I spoke to my sister, who is also a business owner, and she said, you can't have those 2 or 3 cons. And I said, why not? And she said, well, every business owner has those. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this then. So I did a 1-year postgraduate course, which I sped through in 11 months because it all sat so well with me. I was able to do that online, had to build up 100 clinic hours as well, 2 or 3 big texts I had to write as well. Then I was qualified. So, yeah.
So first of all, for the people that don't know, what is a homeopath and what do they do exactly? What does it involve?
So homeopathy itself is a holistic alternative form of medicine that dates back more than 200 years. It's an energy medicine, so it's more similar to Reiki or acupuncture, which more people have heard of. So 98% of people in this country have not heard of homeopathy, but it's the number 1 system of medicine in India. So in terms of what it covers mental, emotional, physical. It is a whole medicine system. So I work 1-to-1 with clients for chronic conditions such as eczema, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, to help resolve those and help them not to come back ever.
Yeah. And you've had your own journey as well. And did you use homeopathy with that? Or is it something you came across a lot later and discovered the kind of the awesomeness of it, really?
Yeah, so as a child, my grandmother lived with us, and my family's origin is from India, and my mum was a retired pharmacist, but she didn't give us Calpol when we were ill. You know, we would get given, you know, a traditional Indian tea, or my grandma would do something. My grandma was a midwife, and we didn't question it as children. And I was given homeopathy as a child, but again, I didn't really, you know, think much of it. You know, fast forward to when my eldest girl, so she's 16 now, she had eczema in the crook of her elbows when she was just a baby. And I then went to use the standard, you know, the mild steroid cream. It wasn't really working, and it was also bleaching her Indian skin. And I thought, not too happy with this. She's only a baby.
Yeah.
So I found my homeopath who fixed the problem. And as I say, 16 years later, it's never come back. So to me, that was my first kind of, this works. This is permanent. This is amazing. How has this happened? But it was quite a few years later before I then thought, actually, I need to make that leap myself. Yeah.
So what about your journey, you know, pre-children? I know you know, you've had a journey with IVF, with postnatal depression.
Yeah.
Did you use it for that or not? And also, I'd like you to talk a bit about that because, again, these are kind of taboo subjects that aren't talked about as well.
Yeah. So for the IVF the first time around, no, we didn't. You know, myself and my husband, we were doing all the right things. You know, we've always been very active. Neither of us have smoked or taken drugs. We were doing all the things that we were supposed to do to get pregnant. And you're led to believe that it's as easy as falling off a log. But with my pharmacy training, I was a sexual health lead at the pharmacy, and we had special things, PDGs, that we could treat people aged 20 and under. So we were giving out the morning after pill, we were giving out, you know, chlamydia treatment testing, etc., all that stuff. And we had to have extra training because of the lower age group, you know, because there was no lower age limit, so child abuse and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which was in stark contrast to what myself and my husband were trying to do, which was to try and get pregnant. And the two were so different in the advice that was being given. It was unreal. So yeah, we went down the road, you know, the conventional method of, you know, lots of things to try before IVF, but it was actually our very first cycle of proper IVF that actually worked, which was weirdly the strangest thing, because I went to the bathroom, as you do, to wee on a stick, and this stick had windows on both sides. And so I'm sitting there staring, looking at it, going, it's not, I can't even see the liquid going up. Went back to bed, came back again, and then something in my head said, turn it over. And then my husband heard me screaming in happiness from the bathroom, going, what? I'm like, it's worked. What do we do now? Because that was what I was not expecting.
Yeah.
The second time round, yes, my homeopath was on board. And not just that, my acupuncturist, who I am 110% convinced that she helped us conceive for both my girls. So she was on board for myself and my husband, and her first name was known to my IVF consultant. So there was quite a few ladies who she was seeing.
Yeah.
And to me, that was that first thing of, actually, I don't care, east, west, give it to me. If it's going to get me pregnant, I want, you know, let's do it. So yeah. And then I did have postnatal after my first child, but that was for about 6 weeks. Not too bad. And looking back, maybe up to the first year, but that's just the struggles of having a young child and not much support, etc. But the second one was a lot worse. And I think, there was a lot of family issues that also exploded at that time, and it really wasn't good. And I'm keen to speak about these experiences because, particularly in, Asian culture, it's not really spoken about. And even, that having trouble conceiving was not spoken about. The first time when people would ask me, standard thing of, oh, you've done your education, oh, you've got married, when are you having a child? All the aunties ask you the questions. And I would smile and hide my pain inside. The second time round, I wasn't so polite, which horrified my mother. She was like, I can't say that. That's so rude. I'm like, I can, Mum. I said, because they are asking the question, so they shouldn't just expect, a nice response. So I had 2 stock responses that I would give people. I don't know if you want me to share those.
Yeah, go ahead.
So If
Someone else
said,
may want to share.
exactly, if I can
well.
stop one person from having those awkward questions being asked of them and the pain. So the first response, if someone said, oh, don't you want another child? I say, yes, I do. Would you like me to call you next time I'm having sex with my husband? Because that's basically what you're asking me. Or the other response would be, yes, I do. Would you like to contribute to the IVF fund? And people's faces would drop. They would be shocked. But I'm like, actually, this is something really painful and, you know, that you've asked me about. You know, it's that kind of small talk that people make when actually it's none of your business. You need to be invited into that conversation if that person then chooses to share that information with you. So yeah. But coming back to the postnatal, it was, it wasn't just, you know, baby blues. It was much deeper than that. There was a point when I wasn't washing, I wasn't eating. I was just, the girls were being taken care of. Both my children were absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You know, they were being taken to school. The young, you know, obviously the newborn was being taken care of. But me, no, not at all. So I did have some counselling through the NHS. It was tricky to get there with a pram. It was also in the same building where methadone addicts were picking up their prescriptions. And I knew that because I recognised their faces and the blue colour of the prescription that I used to give out, obviously, in the pharmacy. So that wasn't great in terms of I know what this is and why I'm here. I was very lucky to then be able to afford 2 private counsellors. So twice a week, I would go to 2 separate counsellors and they basically rebuilt me. So that was 18 months to 2 years of fixing what had exploded, building Neela 2.0, to then go, okay, this is now me. Because at one point, one of the NHS counsellors did make a phone call to my dad and said, you need to look after your daughter because otherwise the police are going to be calling you, because I was very, very close to going to the station and just leaving the pram on one side and just...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now to think back, and obviously the relationship I have with my youngest, I'm now thinking, why would you even, you know, she's hilarious, my youngest. There's no one who can make me laugh as much as her. She's completely drives me crazy. But I didn't have that relationship because she was just a baby.
Yeah.
I hadn't got to know her. I was still trying to pick up the pieces of what happened for me. And the other side is obviously the drugs that you're then pumped full of before to get pregnant, and then the natural crash that happens post-birth as well. So yeah, there was a lot of things that happened. And it's one of my things, if I coo over a newborn, and we all love a newbie because we're not getting up at 3 a.m. to feed them, is to actually turn my face and ask the mum and say, and how are you? Because when you're pregnant, all the focus is on you and the bump and making you feel special and comfortable. And then all of a sudden, all that attention then whooshes over to the baby. The baby's fine. It's got loads of people looking after it. But the mum is then left not only dealing with potential, you know, if you've had a C-section or, you know, tearing or whatever, physical wounds, it's emotional. You're like, I'm a mum. How do I do this? I've never done this before. Am I the same person? All of this starts to come up, as well as the hormones, bits of you that are leaking that are not supposed to, and things that have moved. And you're like, hang on, that didn't do that before. And it, you know, we don't have that village around us. You know, we don't have sisters, aunties, cousins, grandparents, you know, grandmothers to say, actually, this is what you need to do. So yeah, it's something I feel really passionately about.
Thanks for sharing that. I think also, you know, yes, we don't have that village, but then at the same time, I feel like, you know, sometimes when you do come home with this baby and you're just trying to deal with everything that's going on with your body, with the baby, sleepless nights, like everything changes all of a sudden. And then, especially with our kind of South Asian culture, there's someone knocking at the door every 2 minutes. And having the courage to say, no, don't come, you know, can be quite difficult. And a lot of people just let people in, and even when they're not ready as well. So that's another thing to think about. And all these things can contribute to you, you know, not feeling great.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not ultimately, you're still not looking after yourself.
Yeah. So my mum basically moved in for my first one for like the 4 weeks because she lives around the corner.
Yeah.
But I can remember that first week I had a 3rd-degree tear front to back, so I wasn't supposed to go up and down the stairs because it would rub my stitches together. But my eldest was just brought to me for feeding, and the rest of the time I was just left up there. And I can remember the baby being brought downstairs to all the people that had come, and being passed around like a passed parcel, and I could hear the talking and the laughter, and I'm like, I'm still here too. And that was the first time. The second time, to try and stop that, we sent an email to family, we spoke to them, and we said, right, just going to be me, my husband and the baby for 2 weeks. My parents were going to take my oldest to school and back again, and she was going to stay with them for a couple of weeks, just so that we could bond. And because of that, or one of the reasons, my parents felt pushed out. It was like, oh, it's not even our grandchild, and it was all of this. And I'm like,
Oh, no.
but we've explained to you logically, it's not that we don't want you to see your grandchild. We just want 2 weeks just to let the dust settle, you know. But yeah, it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that, definitely. And I hope the messages do help some women, because they do feel like they have to be a certain way when they're, trying to conceive, or even if they're not conceiving, they choose not to conceive, some women, some couples don't want to go down that road, and it's a constant thing hanging over them, because there's always someone asking, when are you going to have a baby, and it's always a thing, which, and it definitely shouldn't be.
No.
So going back to pharmacy and homeopathy, now obviously we've got this kind of east-west divide depending on where you're kind of sitting in the world. I guess it could be the other way as well. How does traditional medicine compare to the homeopathy? Because that's what we're talking about. And there are so many women's health conditions, and just generally health conditions, and often we go to see our GP, they prescribe us something traditional, whether it's paracetamol, Nurofen, antibiotics, or something else, HRT, there's contraceptive pills, so many different things. I'm not saying you shouldn't use those things. Of course, there's a time and a place for everything, East and West. But how do you incorporate homeopathy into that? Because it can't be, obviously, it's not always one or the other, and they can complement each other. Sorry, I've asked about 5 questions all rolled into one there.
That's fine. So yeah, homeopathy is classified as a complementary and alternative medicine. So that's the CAM tree, as I like to call it. So on that tree, you have homeopathy is one of the branches. So Reiki would be another one, reflexology would be another one, acupuncture would be another one, and so on. There's lots of different alternative modalities. All of those treatments, let's say, for example, we're talking about eczema, they would all agree with each other. They might treat the condition slightly differently, but they would all agree with each other as to why it's there or where it's come from. If you go 180 degrees different, you're then looking at conventional medicine. I prefer to use the word conventional for that, because traditionally, actually, homeopathy has been around for more than 200 years. Ayurvedic medicine in India has been around for more than that. Acupuncture and Chinese herbs, easily 5,000-6,000 years. So I prefer to use the word conventional for that. But yes, it's a very different system. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of where that system came from, look up John D. Rockefeller and the Flexner Report, but we won't go into that right now. So conventional medicine, it's the system rather than the people. So if you go, your doctor has been trained to diagnose a condition, put you in a box, label you, and then say, right, I'm now going to prescribe a pharmaceutical product, which will then address that that condition. Okay. So I describe that as a limited blunt toolbox. So they've got certain tools in their toolbox. Unfortunately, what is now happening is that people are getting to the end of that toolbox, and either the side effects are unacceptable, or they are like, well, I don't really want to take these tablets for the rest of my life, or well, why has this happened to me? People want to know why. This is one of the big questions. And they get to the end of that toolbox, and the doctor shrugs their shoulder and go, well, we don't have anything else for you. And this is when people start looking for complementary alternatives, thinking, there must be something else out there. But in answer to your question that can they be used together? Yes, they can. Homeopathy doesn't interact with conventional medicine. Reiki, acupuncture, all these things, most of the time they don't. Obviously, talk to your practitioner about it.
Yeah.
But I would say 90% of the time, no. Herbs is a very different thing, because that is a physical herb. But because Reiki, acupuncture, and homeopathy is all about energy, it's an energy medicine. It's not a physical. So yeah, in terms of when you would use it, I would say always start with homeopathy. If you need to, go to conventional medicine, and for me, it's emergencies. If you've, been run over by a bus, you've broken your leg, someone's, something horrendous has happened, heaven forbid, absolutely, call 999, off you go. Hopefully there's less than 24-hour wait in A&E, and they will patch you up, and that is exactly the right thing to do. They do emergencies really well. What they're not so great at is the maintenance side. They have conditions where they're like, it'll go away by itself. And you're like, really? But I then have to manage this condition. Or they will have, as I say, for eczema, you'll have the steroid creams, mild, medium, and moderate. You'll have oral steroids. You'll have, the emollients, the creams, etc. But no one's actually addressing the root cause, which is what homeopathy does, is to actually, why is the eczema there in the first place? Because everything else, otherwise, you're putting a sticky plaster on a broken leg. That's not good.
Yeah.
You need to find out why it was there in the first place.
So as an example, if I came in with a lot of eczema, how would you treat me in terms of finding out why have I got eczema in the first place?
Yeah.
I guess from the GP's perspective, absolutely. Some of my children have had eczema and they've been prescribed all sorts of things. Yeah. And yes, they have kind of grown out of it, but I don't know whether that worked. I mean, I went on my own kind of trying to figure out what is causing this eczema, and they've done allergy tests and things like that, but I still don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. So first of all, it's a dominant gene. So hay fever, eczema, and asthma is a dominant gene. Okay. So that means, and I can use a personal example here, that my husband suffers with hay fever terribly. He refuses for me to treat him, so I have to listen to him honking from one end of the garden to the other like a goose and blowing his nose, and I'm like, yuck. I have never suffered with any of that. He's previously suffered with a little bit of dry skin. He's had no breathing issues or asthma. I don't have that gene because I've never suffered with any of those things, so I knew that any children we had would have that gene. Okay. And it depends as to what extent. You don't have to suffer all three things. You might just suffer with one of them. So both my children have previously suffered with eczema, of which is obviously all sorted out with homeopathy. Neither of them suffer with hay fever. So the way that I describe it is your genes that you're born with is the hand of cards you've been dealt. And if you're good enough at poker, you can win a game of poker with a pair of eights. So homeopathy and other alternative things can help you to change that hand that you've been dealt. When we look at the Chinese 5-element system, this is just, another way of analysing rather than just the blinkered way of, conventional medicine. In Chinese medicine, the skin, the lungs, and the bowels are different sides of the same triangle, and the emotion is grief. And we use grief in the English language to mean that someone has died, which it could be, or it could be a shock, a trauma, a disappointment. I've missed out on that job. I've missed out on that relationship. When it comes to children, depending on how young they are, I then will ask about the birth. I will ask about the pregnancy. I will ask about preconception, because this is the energy that the child is coming into the world with. So for my daughter, who had the eczema, it wasn't a big surprise. I'd had quite a traumatic birth, even preconception, all of that worry. She was the first grandchild on both sides. You would think there was never another child been born. So that all contributed. And the fact of our heritage, that we'd come from, my parents were both born in India, but obviously I was born here in the UK. That's what we call a tubercular miasm. So it's all to do with the lung energy. Okay. Another client of mine who's also, it's actually a Sikh family, so she's got a daughter and a son. He had been diagnosed with what's called a viral wheeze. Okay.
Right.
So basically he would wake up when he'd got a bit of a cold, and he would say, "Mummy, I feel like someone's strangling me." So he was struggling to breathe. So obviously blue light him to hospital. The whole family was awake. It was very disruptive every time he had a cold. And the mum was really frustrated about this. She's like, "But why? Why is this, happening?"
Yeah.
We've now got him down to, it's one remedy. He's got a cue. They give him the remedy. It stops. That's it. So his cue is he has hiccups. He hiccups a lot. And it's always when he's been exposed to cold, dry air. So he's a big football fan. He's out in the garden playing football with his dad or his friends or whatever, and he forgets that it's going a bit cold. And that will then start him off. So they give him this remedy and that's all over. But I'll come back to the eczema because I didn't quite finish explaining.
Yeah.
The reason that I will look at the bowels with eczema, as I said, because it's the skin, the lungs, and the bowels are all linked. Quite often, it's toxins coming out through the skin rather than through the bowels, the urine, and the sweat, which is the 3 lines of elimination where they should be coming out. So that is also, I would be very interested in what's happening with the bowels. One of my other clients, a little boy about 7, he had impetigo, which is a bacterial infection, sort of yellowy gunge on the face and very red and itchy. But his had gone whoosh, and it had gone from just below his eyes all the way down his cheeks, past his chin, onto his neck, up to his t-shirt line. It was bright red, very itchy. His mum, again, was not keen to use steroids on his face. Came and saw me. When we had the right remedy, it was 80% gone in 6 days. By day 12, gone. And this was over a year ago, and it hasn't come back. And one of the key points for him was he wasn't going for a poo every day.
Right.
Okay. So I was like, right, we need to get his bowels moving.
Yeah.
Because it's like the bin man. We've got to
get
rid of the rubbish.
Yeah.
So yeah, does that help a little bit to
definitely.
explain? Yeah.
So if, once you prescribe whatever it is that's needed for that condition, and then it disappears, is it something that you have to continue taking for the rest of your life, or for a certain 6 months, a year, or that's it, it's kind of sorted?
So yeah, it varies. So with this little boy, this is why I work in 3-month packages, because what I want to see is small positive improvements each month. We fixed him pretty quick, but I was still monitoring to make sure that it wasn't going to come back. And in the few months afterwards, they'd been on holiday. There was a couple of tiny little flares, and his mum was kind of like, ooh, what do I do? I said, okay, just give him a couple more days of that remedy, just to give the message to the body to say, okay, we're done with this now. And yeah, we ran into them in the shopping centre about a month ago. And he, bless him, he didn't remember me, but his face was still absolutely fine. So yeah. But sorry, I forgot to finish my other story. The little boy who was saying that he was, struggling to breathe. The reason, this is coming back to grief. So pre-conception, his mum had suffered a miscarriage. So that was where the grief was. Yeah. So it's finding what is that root cause. So yeah.
And that's the key difference, I find, with the traditional way, because it's, again, you go to your GP and, I'm not stating GPs at all or anything, they are, they do an amazing job. Unfortunately, with a lot of GPs and a lot of medical professionals I've spoken to, it's a system that's actually failing them as well.
Oh, it is.
Which then we take it out on them, because obviously we see them firsthand, and it's not entirely their fault, really. If the system's failing, they're trying to work like, round the clock to help. It's not about the root cause.
No.
I want to know, why have I got that headache? Why have I got heavy periods? Why have I got really painful periods? It's not just about giving me the contraceptive pill to sort it out, or the Nurofen.
Or,
I want, okay, fine, one headache, fine. But if I've got headaches every week or whatever, why do I get these? And that's where I feel like it is failing, because a lot of people, and especially women, go and they're getting dismissed with a lot of problems they're having, and then sometimes it turns out to be quite serious. So I'd be keen to understand how a lot of women go to see their doctors, GPs, when they have menstrual health problems, and then obviously you've got perimenopause, menopause. How can homeopathy help with that in particular?
Okay, so it's understanding what's happening in your body, and it's also realizing that if you feel there's something wrong, you're right. You're living in your body. You know your body much better than anybody else. No matter if, a GP or a consultant says, oh, well, this is what's supposed to be happening. And we're not robots. We don't follow textbooks. It's trusting, that little voice that says, oh, I don't think something's right here. I've got about 3 or 4 case studies of perimenopause for various different reasons. One lady came for anxiety. One lady was having hot flushes as well as migraines. Both of those conditions got sorted. And this is the thing. It's not just, oh, I'm only going to treat you for one condition. I'm looking at all of you truly holistically, mind, body, and spirit. If there's something wrong that's happening to you or you're suffering, I want to know about it, because I can then fix it. So yeah, it is finding out what are your options, and going and having a chat. So what happens at menopause, in very simple terms, is, your pituitary and hypothalamus gland, which are in your brain, are on a negative feedback with your ovaries. Okay, that's how our female cycle works. Okay, from the time that the tap was turned on. The tap is now going to be turned off. We're approaching menopause, which menopause itself, you only know in retrospect, in the rearview mirror. So you have to be 12 months clear of having a period before you can then say, oh yeah, that was my menopause. You get to 11 and a half months and have a bit of a brown show. You're like, damn it, I've got to set the reset the clock. Perimenopause is obviously the time period before you get to your menopause, which you don't know when this magical time is going to happen. It happens on average at the age of 51, but the time period that is allowed is between the ages of 45 and 55. So in theory, if you look at the bottom end of that, you could technically be in perimenopause from age 35 upwards. But if you then went to your doctor at that point, they would poo-poo you and say, no, that's ridiculous, unless there was, hereditary in your maternal line, that your mum went through the menopause at age 37 and so on. That does happen. So I think, and it's also, in addition, women have to go to the doctor 4 times versus 1 time for a man to even be believed about these things. So there's all of that. So coming back to the pituitary and the hypothalamus, they're in a baton race. Okay, so baton race, they're going to pass that baton of control onto your adrenal glands, and they go, okay, your job to take this woman through the last third of her life. The problem is that most women's adrenal glands are at the bottom of a well, waving a white flag, going, help me. Because we've been stressed. We are the sandwich generation of raising young children. We may have elderly relatives or a parent that we're taking care of. We're working full time. We've got to take care of the kids. This is what I call my, women are now having 3 full-time jobs versus in the 1950s, where, okay, it wasn't very enlightened time, but your one job as a woman was to look pretty, get married, have the kids and look after the kids. And that was that, be the homemaker. The men's job was to go out, get the bacon, marry the pretty girl, have the kids and bring home the bacon. And that was it. Now women have to be smashing it in their careers. We have to be looking after our children and making sure that everything is taken care of for them and our own mental health as well. We have to be smashing it in the gym and look a certain way. And it's like, sorry, I need to drink 8 glasses of water and have 8 hours of sleep, and I don't have the same 24 hours as Beyonce. It's utter madness. And it's society rather than, or even sometimes other women who are then judging. And it's like, hang on, we're all in this together. At some point, something has to go. Is it any wonder that we're stressed? And that's just what we're doing, let alone we're not living in line with nature. We're supposed to be cycling with the moon for our menstrual cycles. We're supposed to not have artificial light. Madness, absolute madness. And that's just, tip of the iceberg. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons your adrenals then go, okay, I give up. And this is when women get the night sweats, the insomnia, the brain fog, the hot flushes, the burning tongue, all the other 34 official horrendous symptoms that can happen with menopause. So, yeah.
I wonder if there's, I don't know, any kind of research or information on what, like, from the UK, obviously, because, that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah.
A trajectory showing women going through the menopause in the 40s, 50s, maybe post-war, I guess, because those were extremely stressful times, but going through 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and up to now, and seeing a comparison of symptoms. Have they got worse? Because women fought so hard to have these freedoms to work, to vote, and so on. And we're here now and we're trying to do it all. But the system isn't built to support it because, of course, childcare and, nursery fees and all of these things. So I wonder if the symptoms have got worse over time.
So you're right. And you then look back at, did our mothers suffer? Did our grandmothers suffer as much, even though they've been through war and, much harsher times? But the stress is only one component. The other component is the chemicals. Okay. So specifically, I'm talking about synthetic hormones. So in the 60s, contraceptive pill, which the dosage was a lot higher than it is currently. So that first cohort of women were the guinea pigs. Okay. And again, I know we've both read the same book, which is The Invisible Women, where, you know, drug testing in the US was not done on women until 1993.
Yeah.
And yes, this was because of the scare of thalidomide in the 60s, which was absolutely right. But even for drugs that were specifically for women, they wouldn't do it. And it's more expensive. So you then have this, you know, these large amounts of synthetic hormones that are being put into women. So when you have a pregnant woman, you actually have 3 generations if she's pregnant with a girl. So you have the mum, you have the fetus, and if the fetus is a girl, you then have the eggs. So that's 3 generations that are there. And what's happening to those synthetic hormones is they're being weeded out. They're in our tap water. It's epigenetics. Okay, so in our unfiltered tap water, there's ibuprofen, antibiotics, oral contraceptive pill, antidepressants. It's not great. Okay, and they have done studies where there are shoals of fish where they were equally male and female, and now because of what's in the water, they're all being converted to female. We're all far too estrogen dominant.
I'm sure I, you know, no one quote me on this, but
Yeah.
either I read it or saw it.
Yeah.
They did a test in, I think, from the Thames, and the cocaine levels in the Thames was like crazy.
Not that we're drinking from the Thames, but yeah.
But
it was... this is where, you know, people say, oh, but tap water's clean. I'm like, well, yes, of course they do treat it. I said, but this is, you know, kind of bringing it full circle back to homeopathy, that, you know, how we make homeopathic remedies is we super dilute them. And people, you know, the scientists, quote unquote, will say, oh, well, you've super diluted it, so there's nothing left. It's like, well, actually, anyone who's watched Frozen 2 and listened to Olaf knows that water has memory. And they've done studies in India to prove that it's nanotechnology. So water does pick up the memory. And this is where we're getting into epigenetics. That yes, if you test it for the physical presence of, you know, the contraceptive pill, no, it's not there.
Yeah.
But it's still having an effect. It can't not. So yeah, that's combined in with, and it's not just that. Even if you've never taken the contraceptive pill, the clothes we're wearing, the air that we're breathing, the containers that we have our food in, it is ubiquitous. Endocrine disruptors or hormone disruptors are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get away from them.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, many, many, many years ago, this wasn't a thing.
No.
You know, our fruit and vegetables weren't wrapped in plastic. You know, actually growing up, I don't even remember. It was all just, you know, the fruit and veg stores. It was everything was just there, and you just pick it. There was no plastic. Yeah,
and
it wasn't.
You take that one step further. What tree has that apple been grown on? The soil has been depleted. It's been sprayed with pesticides, etc., etc. So it's there's several rabbit holes we.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, as a former pharmacist, you know, you've got 20 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry, and you've been prescribing probably everything under the sun, right? Yeah. So in your opinion, you know, I mean, I know you've moved into homeopathy now, and you're not registered pharmacist anymore, but you've got a lot of experience in that area, and in your opinion, yes, there's a space for the medicine, but do you think that, you know, I don't know quite how to put this, but for me, I feel like every time I'm prescribed something, I am hesitant, and I think about 50 times whether or not I want to take this thing that they've given me. Of course, if it was going to, you know, like you say, if it was an A&E situation, of course give me everything, you know, to keep me alive.
Yes,
But if it's a case of paracetamol or ibuprofen or contraceptive pill or HRT or certain things that I can maybe think about, and yes, let's face it, not all women, you know, some women need HRT like now because they're going through all sorts of horrific things potentially.
Yeah.
But if you're not, and your symptoms, you know, are bearable, or, you know, they're on the cusp, what do you suggest? Because it's a case of you are putting artificial things, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're a pharmacist.
They are. They're made in a lab.
A pharmacist.
Yeah, they are made in a lab. And in fact, before they were made in a lab, one of the brands of HRT, it's now generic, but it's called Premarin. And the reason it has that name is because it stood for pregnant mare, as in pregnant horse.
Oh.
That's where they extracted the estrogen, was from their urine.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, now it is synthetic, but they're not your hormones. No matter how much they say, oh, they're bioidentical,
Yeah.
they're not yours. So in terms of practical things that people can do, I think what you're asking about is you're unsure or, don't have the information. Go and find an alternative practitioner and they will tell you. Things like a fever or urinary tract infection, half an hour with my girls, we're done. I don't have to go and get painkillers. I don't have to give them antibiotics. So this is the power that I want to give to, regular busy working mums who are like, I've got a 10 o'clock meeting and my child's ill and oh God, I've got to go to the walk-in centre. I know that it takes up time and money. If you've got a little homeopathic kit at home and you know what to do with it, brilliant. You can treat your family yourself. The bigger things, the more chronic things, yes, you need to see a practitioner one-to-one. But in practical terms, if someone is suffering from the menopause, cutting down on things that are bad for your liver. The liver controls our menstruation and our menopause. So bye wine, okay? Any kind of toxins, eat things that are good for your liver, okay? Making sure, making those small changes. So for example, if you're taking your lunch to work in a plastic Tupperware container and then putting it in the microwave to heat it up, swap it out for a glass one. IKEA do them.
Yeah.
Okay, it's those little changes. If you can filter your tap water, then great. If you can try and swap some of your fruit and veg for organic, great. Dairy, for example, it's a really easy swap. 20% of non-organic milk is pus, which is minging. So it's those sorts of things that you can start to do yourself. Slowly start changing things up. Yeah
I feel like now there's so much that we can do proactively and think about, but of course there's the other side. Not everyone has access to a homeopath or alternative ways of doing things because they cost money, right? It's not available through the NHS, unfortunately. It would be great if things were kind of linked up, but they're not. What would you suggest for people that haven't got that access, really? Because not a lot of people don't.
So I've got a blog on my website. I've also got a menopause module, which is about £35 that people can buy. That's all pre-recorded, where I take you through all the little changes you can make. Or even if you just Google and say, right, what things are causing endocrine disruption, or I say you either do it with go through the rooms of your house. You can start with the kitchen or you can start with the bathroom. It's looking at the ingredients and saying, okay, is there a better way of doing this? Even cleaning products. I should have shares in sodium bicarbonate now because it's brilliant. I'm using it to clean everything. It's non-toxic. I know that it's not going to affect, my hormones. And actually it's working better than some of the, the harsher chemicals. So it's pick an area of your life or a room of your home and go, okay, what can I do with this? What is within my reach and practically, and as you say, within their finances as well? Because it's looking back. What did our mothers do? What did our grandmothers do? So that's what I would say. Look at all the alternative practitioners that are out there. Have a look at their websites, their Instagram, whatever it is. They will be giving these free tips because they are. You can find the information.
Yeah.
And
how do you know you're seeing someone that's actually qualified? Because can it be the case of I can say, oh, I did a mini course and I'm a homeopath kind of thing.
So again,
people have that worry as well,
of course. So having a chat with them, having a look at their credentials, there is there are obviously registers for Reiki practitioners and acupuncturists. So for homeopaths, there's a website called findahomeopath.org. You can put in your postcode and we pay to be registered on there. We also have professional bodies which, unlike the GPHC or the GMC, we don't have to be registered with them. So if someone is not registered with a professional body, you kind of think, well, I'd rather go with someone who is registered because they've chosen to be registered with them. So absolutely, as you would with anything else, do your research, ask people for recommendations, because you would want someone to be qualified.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you one thing, which I want to start asking my guests with all the amazing knowledge that they have. For me, I've, after, doing research, speaking to lots of people, I really think there are these, kind of 5 things that we should be looking at, from the perspective of your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, and, relationships and social connections and things like that. So if you could pick one thing, okay, and only one, try and only pick one thing, because obviously we know they're all important, but one thing that you'd focus on as your top priority for your health, what would it be?
For me, it would be sleep. It's such a big lever to everything else. We all know what it's like to feel tired or then be in a rush the next day when you haven't had enough sleep or you've had a poor night's sleep. It affects so much more than we know. But the other thing, which is kind of cheating, but basically combining, they call it habit stacking now, where if you're then going on a walk outside with a friend and you're talking, you're kind of doing quite a lot of that. So you're walking in nature, obviously without phones and devices. You're talking to a friend, so you're having that connection, and possibly your mental health if you're having a bit of a rant to your friend or talking to her or him. You're moving because you're walking. So you're doing 3 or 4 things there already. And it's like, that's great. So that is different to then trying to do those things separately, because I'm all for, most of my clients are busy working mums. I don't like adding to their to-do list. What I want to do is say, actually, let's do this in this way. And they're like, that actually helps and saves me time. So I'm a busy working mum myself. So, I don't want someone saying, you've got to do this 3 times a day. So that's habit stacking is what I would say. Find a way to do that. Yeah.
Can homeopathy help with sleep?
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is always yes. It's to what extent.
Yeah.
So, and what's causing you to sleep. And also we've got the organ clock in Chinese medicine. So they split the 24-hour clock into 2-hour segments. They believe that the chi, prana, energy, whatever you want to call it, is within that organ nourishing it for those 2 hours. Then it moves on to the next organ and so on. And quite often, if someone says, I'm waking in the middle of the night, I say, okay, did you look at the clock? Yeah, it was 2:30. I said, So 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is liver hours. Okay. 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is lung hours. So if I have someone consistently waking up at 2:30 and they're showing me menopausal symptoms, I'm like, that's your liver saying, a lady I was treating started eating liver-friendly foods, of which the list is on my website. She also took it upon herself to have celery juice. I have not been brave enough because apparently it tastes very, very bitter and very foul.
Yeah.
But she did it for a week and she said I couldn't stomach it after that, but she stopped waking up at 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Okay. So our body is always talking to us. We just have to learn to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a great ending. I love that. Our body is always talking to us, and listen to your body, tune into your body, and trust yourself, trust your instincts, I guess, Yeah. Have you got any final words of wisdom to share? Because I think, I love it when I speak to people that have got this kind of professional qualification, whether it's medicine or pharmacy or whatever, and then they move into these alternative ways of doing things, whether it's homeopathy or acupuncture or functional medicine or something like that.
Yeah. I think for me, the reason I moved is I went into pharmacy to help people.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing was just dishing out more and more drugs and not actually helping anyone. Now I actually get to say, and clients have said to me, you've changed my life. And not only that, I can see it. I have then helped to fix whatever it is, and it's gone away and it's not coming back. And there's no greater feeling than doing that. But it's not just that, it's then using it on my own family. My youngest having a urine tract infection, crying on the toilet because her urine was hurting her.
Yeah.
Half an hour later, we were done with the right remedy, water, went off to bed. That was it. Versus at least, the whole next day going to the walk-in centre, finding a pharmacy that's open, getting the antibiotics into her, giving her the Calpol for the pain relief. Half an hour. I mean, I want to give that to every busy mum in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can do it. It's not just for me to do. You can do this. So,
One final thing, I want to talk about the system because, obviously we know that there's huge problem with the system. And when I say system, you know, I'm referring to the government at the end of the day and the NHS.
Yep.
And, you know, it's the government that will direct the NHS and the doctors and, you know, so on. What do you think needs to change with the system? Because everyone keeps talking, not everyone, a lot of people keep saying, oh, you know, the system's broken and it's so difficult to do this and do that. What changes would you make if you could run the system? I mean, that's a huge question,
that's a
actually.
big question.
God, I don't know where that came from. That came out of nowhere, but that's a very big question.
I think the start would be to acknowledge that they're not listening to the grassroots.
Yeah.
I witness white paper after white paper come through our pharmacy, and it's the middle management pissing about.
Yeah.
And making all these recommendations, but they're not putting the funding in place. If you've got one midwife who's on a 12-hour shift, she hasn't eaten, she hasn't gone to the toilet, she's too busy writing notes to then take care of the 10 labouring women that she's in charge of. That's not fair to her. It's not fair to the labouring women. You're not listening to the grassroots. You're not taking the nice guidance that has said that this is not right. Women are still labouring on their backs, which was something that was, down to Louis XIV, because apparently the view was nicer for him. Really?
God.
I could do a whole episode on just,
God.
labour and childbirth,
yeah.
okay? But to me, it is either, listening to the doctors and nurses on the grassroots, paying for more staff to alleviate the pressure on them, rather than keep trying to cut the costs, and incorporate, like the French do. If you go and see a French GP, they are just as likely to write a homeopathic prescription as they are to write a conventional medicine one.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So why not incorporate that? Yes, as we said, there are times and places for you've been run over, you've been shot, whatever. Go and get that sorted out. If there are other things, why not pay complementary and to have them join together in a hub? Then the patient truly has the choice then of where to go. Will be signposted. Yeah. So there's a lot more to that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is. And you're right, there's a lot of episodes there, but yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. Neela, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been great to have you on and sharing your insights. And also, thank you so much for sharing your personal journey with us as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.